Jay McLean, baby.
And we're going to invite on our sister who has become a regular in the gotKushTV studio. You know what I'm saying? She's, you know what I mean? Her application is in for a full-time job. You know, bigging up sister Esther Stanford Jose.
Greetings, sister. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. You sound a little bit low, so that's why I was checking.
Am I low? Is that better?
Yeah.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, my volume's full up, but it still sounds low. But it's okay as long as you can hear me. I can hear you, so that's fine.
So those who do not know Sister Esther, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
What can you say about Sister Esther? You're amazing.
Okay, so Sister Esther Stanford Kosei. I am a jurisconsult, which is a specialist in jurisprudence, which is the science and philosophy of law, community advocate, Pan-African community advocate, and emerging his, her, and our historian of the international social movement for African reparations. That's me. Essentially, I'm a reparationist, which is a reparations scholar activist.
Can I'd like to ask you a question. In terms of the current climate, in terms of the Black Lives Matter and the disturbances and so forth, I mean, in terms of reparation, is this giving us power towards reparation? Is this giving us the reparation cause strength, do you think?
No, not at all. Because the Black Lives Matter movement, as we know, I mean, yes, if you know about it, people will say this movement goes back centuries. But in its current formulation, you know, we're talking about a few years. So the struggle for African people's reparation is an intergenerational struggle that began from the first time Africans were kidnapped off the shores of Africa. And the original goals of that movement were about restoration of our sovereignty as African people and our homeland and our right to return to our homeland. So we're not seeing a lot of focus on Africa at this time. It doesn't matter where we live. It doesn't matter where we're born. Essentially, our homeland, which is still not free, is Africa and is actually being recolonized. And so the Black Lives Matter movement in its current sort of phase does not really focus a lot on Africa, doesn't focus on Black lives in the diaspora cannot matter until Africa is strong, free, liberated. That's why our lives in the diaspora don't matter, because we're in the lands of our captivity, but a lot of us have forgotten homeland and think that we can be powerful outside of the power block, which is our original home. So in that sense, what I would say this moment has done is for many newer generations, younger generations, I should say, perhaps it has conscientized them around issues of racism. But some of us who are seasoned activists would say that actually what we're seeing is an attempt to, and not necessarily, I'm not necessarily accusing Black Lives Matter in terms of our well-intentioned, conscientious family members who are gravitating towards this movement. What I'm looking at is what is known as corporate capture of our liberation movements, where it might look like it is ours, but actually it is a marketing brand that actually benefits people from outside of our community. So overnight, some of the same people who are in institutions of power that are literally holding their knees on our people's necks are the ones you will see taking the knee. I'm talking about all of these politicians, including in the British Labour Party. But yet the same British Labour Party that is treating our people abysmally. So much anti-African prejudice and discrimination, or Afrophobia. The same Labour Party that will recognise anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, but not the specific form of racism that affects people of African heritage. So do you see the duplicity? But a Black Lives Matter movement can allow for that, because there's a lot of symbolism, and we're not looking at the substance of what is happening and what the messages are. At the end of the day, our wealth is still being looted today. And we, especially those of us who live in the UK and in London, we are in one of the world's biggest financial markets for that looting of our people's wealth. So that's why some of us in reparations campaigning, we formulate it as the need to stop the maangamizi. And the maangamizi is a key Swahili word for the African Holocaust or Holocaust and continuum of chattel, colonial and neo-colonial forms of enslavement. So the very world system as it is today, which some of us feel privileges us, is the same system that is causing death, genocide, and pollution of our environment, and death in terms of our ecology, which is ecocide today. So that's what we're up against. And we're not hearing those messages coming from the Black Lives Matter movement. We're not hearing a recognition of pre-existing liberation movements, out of which many of those who are saying Black Lives Matter today, the shoulders on which they stand. But we are a long memory people, and there's no way that we can say, because people are focusing on tearing down statues, our goal in terms of the political goals of Pan-African reparations for global justice were never about statues. It was always clear it was about our land, our liberty, and the right to benefit from our resources, so that our people around the world could have access to that intergenerational wealth that our people have worked for and toiled for, even in today's times. So we have not yet had global redistribution of our people's wealth, our people's power, redistribution of income. When we start talking about those things and seeing those things tangibly happen, not in tokenistic ways, then we will know that we've actually began to meet some of the requirements of what people talk about in terms of compensation. But compensation in itself is only one aspect of a holistic reparations process. And when you talk about compensation outside of liberation, you're talking about accepting a bad deal.
Yes,
okay.
Just to shout, some people are really agreeing with what you're saying. Peace and Powers family, with what people are saying. Tell them, sis. Shout out to all the points that you're making, very, very valid. Tell them, Sister Esther, I love every single word. There's so much popping through the chats because people are in complete agreement. They see through the agenda. What can people do? What should people actually be supporting rather than the BLM movement?
Well, the struggle, really continue the struggle for our people's power and liberation and emancipation. So in the 50s and 60s, it was very fashionable to talk about Black power. That's what matters. As a people, we will know that power is not just individual, it's not local, it's not even global, which is, you know, the global and the local combined together. Real power is actually international in that it transcends all these borders. Our people will have power when we are recognized as having power globally, and that we can identify with those people. So when we talk about any other nation or any other people on the planet that exercises group power, We don't talk about, say, the Jewish people in America or the Jewish people in Britain. We talk about Jewish people or any other people. So that's really what we're really going on with here. The Ma'angamisi, which is the modern day phase of this system of death, including what's called social and civil death, where we exist. We're physically alive, okay? We're breathing just about, because a lot of the time our people live in areas that are heavily polluted, lots of environmental racism, worse quality housing, hardly any green spaces. Our children are growing up in toxic environments. They're being born in it. They're coming out of the womb in that way. So from the beginning of our sojourn on planet Earth, our life chances and quality of life are severely depreciated. So until we get to a place where we can do more than just survive, and let's not forget, we're in a position now where we are coming out of, supposedly, whether people say a pandemic, whatever it is, we're talking about the weaponization of particular technologies, some would say bioweapons, that can actually obliterate us from planet Earth. See, historical enslavement, chattel enslavement, beginning in the mid-1400s in terms of European chattel enslavement of African people, they did not have that kind of power or technology to do that. Today, a lot of the destruction is being done by those in financial markets, the scientists, all the people that we hold up as being the people that we should aspire to become. That's where the damage is being done. I'm not saying they're not doing good things, but if we look at where the harm is being perpetrated today, we can see there's something fundamentally sick and wrong with the global economic system, the political system, the educational system, the system of even, wealth creation. Sorry, did you were saying something?
No, it's okay, sis. It's okay.
So as reparationists, we know that actually what we should be focusing on as a people are looking at what's called guarantees of non-repetition.
So sorry, Sister Esther, you're getting some feedback. I'm just wondering if you could turn down, have you got another spare thing on?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. Is that better? I'm not sure why. I haven't got any other device on, just this little laptop.
Okay, all right, no worries. Let's see if we can carry on and it might improve. Maybe Sister Ari, have you got anything else on?
Yeah, I just want to ask Sister Esther. I've noticed in the media, both here and abroad, there seems to be a lot of apologies taking place. And I just want to know, what are the implications of those apologies in terms of the campaigning for reparation?
Okay, so to be quite honest, they are of limited effect, because even in those of us in the International Social Movement for African Reparations, these apologies mean nothing unless they are apologies of substance. Now, an apology of substance means that those words must accompany deeds that actually demonstrate that institutions are sorry and that they intend to be part of the process of redistributing ill-gotten gains that they have been beneficiaries of as a result of intergenerational wealth that has passed down through these institutions, but also families who benefited from the genocide, trafficking, the Ma'angamisi of our people. So what it is an attempt to actually divert the struggle for reparations. Because actually this year, prior to the emergence on the scene, after the killing the lynching or the execution of George Floyd, there was a lot of focus on Africa. It was kind of unprecedented this year. Even Caribbean states, nation states, were commemorating African Liberation Day. Now, what we know is that our people have been deemed to be the biggest threat when we have internationalized our resistance. That is when we have been deemed to be the biggest threat, when we realize that all those borders, all those divisions that have been put there to keep us separated, and therefore not to realize our group power, that we are beginning to break them down ourselves. That's where we were at. But now the focus has gone right back to just saying, well, we must just tackle racism, which is fine. But if you truly understood the roots of racism, you know you cannot tackle racism without tackling capitalism, because really that is the foundation of the system of racial stratification. And many of these institutions are not prepared to give up access to the wealth that they actually still control, the raw commodity. And many of us are getting focused on these little apologies where they themselves, the institutions, have said that, oh, they're literally just going to be doing corporate social responsibility, in my opinion. Giving funding and choosing, there's some BAME groups, Black and minority ethnic groups. That's not what we're talking about. That's what they should be doing anyway. That's not reparations. Reparations are about us. We get to decide what are reparations and what are fair and adequate reparations for us.
Sister Esther, a quick question in relation to what you just said. So in recent years, the two more, in terms of land and resource redistribution, the two most prominent movements that we have seen in the Black world reside in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. We know that there are also more lower key ones in Kenya and Namibia and other places, you know what I'm saying, in terms of land reclamation and redistribution. But I'd like to know, in terms of the issue of economics, how you see these movements that we've seen on the continent as contributing to the economic development of our people globally.
They are, but these moves underway that we're seeing in Azania, so-called South Africa, and Zimbabwe, they have been interrupted. So the whole process of, say, land redistribution, as you will know, in Zimbabwe, it was agreed that farmers, white farmers, would be compensated, literally. So that can only happen because our people in Zimbabwe by themselves, our people in Azania, so-called South Africa, by themselves, cannot take on the global system of white power that still exercises power and dominion over our resources there in those countries. Because remember, this system we're talking about is global. So that is why the EU, Canada, North America, Australia, all these nations can come to the assistance of their white kith and kin, European kith and kin, in these countries and exert power and influence over the so-called international arena that actually ensures that our people don't come out of sanctions, which is what's happened with Zimbabwe. So they are making a contribution. And that is why we must ourselves, as Africans in the diaspora, return to the historic role we have always played in supporting those struggles for African liberation, wherever we are. Because they are our struggles, but they need to be strengthened by the worldwide African community, our nation. Yes? And ultimately, these are what we call, Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah wrote a book called The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And in it, he spoke about the process of revolution and liberation struggle. And so we recognize that in Africa, there are contested zones, and then there are what we call liberated zones. So many of these examples that we're seeing, they are emerging as liberated zones again, but they cannot do it by themselves. And one of the weaknesses, because we must, as much as we commend and we recognize our people's strengths, we also have to recognize, even in our everyday reality, the weaknesses of some of the approaches that we are taking. Because we don't actually have time to wait another 200 years to reflect back and say, oh, that's where we took a wrong turn. We have to do it now as we're even making moves. And one of the weaknesses is that even these attempts to reclaim land and therefore to benefit from the resources, they're being done in isolation. So our people are themselves right there on the continent are not necessarily waging these as Pan-African battles. Yes, that is a huge weakness in our movement globally, that we are operating from the position of powerlessness, not because we are innately powerless, but because of the history and actually the structural oppression that denies us the ability to exercise our power. And it's not that we can't, we know many have tried. But what often happens and what has happened is that those efforts have been cut down or cut short. So that's one of the lessons that we need to learn from in our story as a people.
Yes, Sister Esther talking facts. This is from the comments on the side. I also got a request. How can I get Sister Esther to come and give a talk and educate the people, to come at my firm and educate the people there? So an interest in that sense, would that be something that would be possible, Sister Esther?
Yes, well, if people genuinely want to hear, and I'm sure, learning, we're all learning together. So that's possible. Yeah, sure. So just contact me. I'm easy to find, very easy to find. Or you can contact gotKushTV, and I'm sure they can connect you with me. But just finalizing that point about economy, because this what you're talking about today is very relevant to the struggle for holistic repair or reparations. But if we go back to the root of what economy means, so echo means home. It comes from the Greek word oikos, meaning home. So an economy means management of the home. An economy means a management of the home, how we organize our relationships in a place in order to take care of that place and each other. That's what an economy is. And when we think about home, don't just think of it in terms of your individual home where you live right now. Home is our homeland, but home is our earth, our Mother Earth. How are we able to organize relationships on planet Earth in order that we can not contribute to an extractive economy, which is what we have now, but is based directly on the maangamizi of our people continuing onto today, but be part of a process to decolonizing wealth, financial institutions that still pillage and profit from the genocide and ecocide of our people, indigenous peoples, and the majority of humanity, to a system of justice, just economy that is regenerative. So it means that we don't make money out of, raping the earth of her resources and thinking, well, because we've discovered oil or gas, that we're going to get rich. But at what cost? At what cost to our lives, our health, and our well-being? So I have a plea. And my plea is for those of you, because we all have different parts and roles to play in this struggle. I don't focus so much on the economy of it in that way. The social entrepreneurs or cooperative enterprises. But I'm urging those of you who are focusing on business and industry and enterprise to also examine the knowledge systems that we're working with, examine the very tools that you are utilizing and thinking will liberate us, and actually do an audit of how are we really empowering ourselves? And if we are, is it a few at the expense of the many? So we need to engage more in cooperatives and not just promote the fact of buying black as people is, because that is just focusing on our consumption. What are we producing? Are we producing our own food? Are we producing and developing the basic services our people need? Food, clothing, shelter. So what services are we providing our people? Recognizing the huge gaps and inequalities in wealth, intergenerational wealth, okay, that we know exist. There was a recent study that was done that spoke about, I think, white households in Britain having 63% more income than our people, African Caribbean people in particular. That's what we're talking about. How do we actually rebalance that? And we know we don't rebalance that by just saying to our people, they have to buy black. Because at the end of the day, a lot of our people don't even have the basic resources to feed our own children. We're living in the worst forms of housing. And anyone who knows anything about true wealth, there's a difference between money and wealth, as you know, but true wealth is based on land and assets, real tangible assets, real property, real estate. There's a book I'd recommend. There's two. Somebody called Kevin Cahill. One of them he wrote is called Who Owns Britain? And then the second one is Who Owns the World? In the book Who Owns Britain, he points out at that time it was 60 million population in Britain, that 59 million of the 60 million population, and these obviously the stats are changed now, but that was the figure that was in the book, live on just 10% of the landmass of the United Kingdom. So when we're driving on motorways or we're going from one city to another, and you see all that land, who owns that? But yet they will have us in concrete jungles. Okay? They will gentrify areas. They will have our children cooped up, no actual green spaces, no real spaces for them to just even breathe. And then we wonder why there is so much intra-community violence amongst us, when we have literally been dispossessed of our homeland, and many of us have given that up for our citizenship on an island. That's literally what we're talking about. Now, the other statistic that he gives in Who Owns the World is that Queen Elizabeth II holds legal title, or I would say legalized title, because we're not going to justify it by saying it's lawful, to 1/6 of planet Earth. 1/6. So a lot of the land systems, even in the countries that we have so-called independence, there's still this underwritten rule of crown lands. That's why our people had to buy back land in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, and even to get the people who've stolen the land and continue to benefit from that stolen land, off of the land, they have to be paid compensation. Yeah? But one of the things Kevin Cahill says, and he's a Scottish academic, is that the biggest kind of link between those that are wealthy and those that are impoverished on the planet is that only 15% of the world's population has access to legal land ownership. I can't hear you, brother. Your mic is...
Sorry, 1 second. Can you hear me now? Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So what it is that we've got Brother Robin Walker in the back, and it's actually we're actually well into his time right now. So I don't want to cut off the thing.
No. I was only meant to be on for 15 minutes.
I know, yeah.
It's a much longer conversation.
Yeah. You know, it's very difficult to cut when she's in flow. So we appreciate that.
I would like to ask the sister, if I may. The last time we had a conversation, and I think you picked up on it just a while ago, was about cooperatives. And it's what when you mention about cooperatives, what kind of solutions can be birthed from developing cooperatives? What are we talking about?
You know what? I know that we have a brother Adote Bing, Dr. Adote Bing, who will be on the schedule. And he will be speaking about that. So in the interest of time, he's doing a lot of work in that field. So let him answer that question, as I'm sure he will.
All right.
Thank you so much.
It's a powerful lineup, kings and queens. It's a powerful lineup, and that issue of cooperatives and what's the word? And it'll come back to me in a second. But cooperatives and credit unions, cooperatives. Is extremely important conversations for us to have in terms of further development. We're gonna let go of Sister Esther now, but thank you for coming through, my sister.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, before you go down, I just want to let you know, everyone know, I just got a call from Swiss. He's apologized because he was supposed to be with us earlier, but it's been a mad day for him, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But he gave me 2 pieces of information to let the people know. The first piece of information is that Black Pound Day is currently trending on Twitter. Yeah, so it's the message of this particular initiative is currently trending, and they've had over 400,000 hits on the Black Pound Day website. Today, Kings and Queens, today alone.
Very good.
And the reason why we're doing this, is because obviously there's levels to the thing. So when gotKushTV does it, we got to bring in the voices of the people them that are gonna up the levels. Like Sister Esther was saying, it's not just about buying black, it's about production, it's about resources, it's about land. And these are the conversations. So we're using the opportunity, the energy of Black Pound Day, to have these kinds of conversations and up the levels, because there's levels to the thing. And as I let go of Sister Esther, we're not gonna down the levels any further, we're gonna keep it at the same level, Kings and Queens. Blessed Sister Esther, thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna keep the level the same, Kings and Queens, because the Black History Man himself is in the building.
Greetings, welcome from Ghana, Accra. I am Stella B. I am hosting for gotKushTV's Voyage to Motherland.
This is Nat Nye, gotKushTV, Voyage to Motherland.